Gay.
Hey
everyone, it's Dr. J
and Dr. Megan,
and today we are talking to you about how to march into mobility. And so we're so excited for you guys to join us because we've gotten a lot of questions about like mobility in general. So we hope these tools are practical and useful for you as we get into things. So what that looks like is first we want to define aging for you and what that really looks like, because people these days are actually living longer than expected, more towards 80 years or longer, which is really great. But we also want our quality of life to be good as we age. We don't want to just be stuck or immobile and not be able to participate and enjoy life. And so Dr. Megan, when you think about aging, what does that look like for you?
For me, what I think about is just what I want to be doing. I want to be independent and I want to be chasing grandkids around, traveling, all the things that I do now, I want to be doing then, and if not better. What about you?
I would totally agree with that statement. I want to not just live, but I want to thrive in my older years. I want to be able to still move well and run and play and just enjoy retirement when I get there, like traveling sounds so great. And so the definition of aging, actually, according to WHO, which is the World Health Organization, says that at the biological level, aging results from the impact of the accumulation of a wide variety of molecular and cellular damage over time. And that leads to a gradual decrease in physical and mental capacity. These changes are neither linear nor consistent, and they're only loosely associated with a person's aging, person's age in years. So again, just because we're getting older into our 60s, 70s, and 80s does not necessarily mean our quality of life has to decline or our independence has to decline.
Absolutely. So like Dr. J said, people are living longer and longer, but that doesn't necessarily equate to living healthy and long. There are these areas in the world that have been studied. They're called the blue zones. And these are areas with the largest amounts of centennials, people living to 100 and above. And not only are they living to that age, but they are thriving. They are independent for the most part. They're out and about. They're, making their own meals. And so the reason they were studied was to see if there are any commonalities between these different people groups. And lucky for us, there are. So there are some things we can learn from them and can incorporate. So some of those things that they have in common are their locations. Typically they're in smaller towns, so it's much easier for them to walk most places to get what they need. They get outside most, if not every day. Their food is very fresh. A lot of them are in coastal areas. They eat lots of plants, and they're very social and community focused. Relationships are typically important to these people, and they generally have a positive outlook on life. While we don't all live in coastal towns, unfortunately, and we a lot of us drive our cars most places, there are some things that we can incorporate and feel empowered by, and that's what we're going to get into today. Mostly mobility is what we're going to talk about, as well as some nutrition at the end. But yeah, with that, let's get into it.
So first, we want to go through also why we lose mobility. And what I think Dr. Megan was saying that is super important about these blue zones is that just their lifestyle, it can be so different than what we are doing these days. And like you said, there can be a lot gained from that specific type of lifestyle. And like she was talking about, like they get outside and they move, they're getting their vitamin D, but they're moving every single day in some way. Like they're walking probably at least like 4 or 5 miles a day. And a lot of us, because we're stuck behind a desk, are not getting that much movement. And so what we don't use, we'll end up losing. And I say that because we're also going to talk a little bit about different planes of motion. So you can move in your sagittal plane, your horizontal plane, and then the transverse plane or rotationally. So all these different movements and planes of motion really help keep our joints stable and loose and supple. Certain health conditions can actually create a mobility loss, even heart disease, arthritis, RA, things like that can decline our joints. But again, don't be defined just by your diagnosis as well. And then again, if you haven't practiced or trained these specific ranges of motion, we'll start to lose it over time. So for example, when I was younger, I used to be way more flexible. I would be able to bend over and touch my toes. As I got older, because I wasn't practicing these things, my range of motion started to really decline. And I would say in the last like year or two is when I really started to like focus and pay attention to myself and say, hey, like I am not as good at bending over to touch my toes anymore. So I really started working on my flexibility. And so now that I'm training it, it's starting to come back. But if I hadn't paid attention to myself and my own mobility, I probably wouldn't be as flexible as I am now. And I think that's super important. It's kind of like, when I think about like when things that we don't use that we'll lose, the reason we have a mirror there is because it's like at the beginning of your day, you're your tallest and your highest. And so I get in my car and I'm looking in my rear view mirror and things might be okay. Towards the end of the day, so like tonight when I go home and I'm driving in the car, I will look in my rear view mirror and I'll sit up tall on my seat, push myself all the way back, just like I do in the mornings. But every once in a while, almost every night, I'll notice I'll have to adjust my rear view mirror because it's like I shrank throughout the day. It's crazy. It's so crazy.
I was just thinking that I had never noticed that before. I actually think I've gotten in my car at the end of the day and thought there was something wrong with my mirror, that it was like, but now thinking about it, I do adjust my mirror at the end of the day.
Yes, and we shouldn't necessarily have to, but we end up doing it. And that's because of your disc spaces. So why is that, Dr. Megan?
So like Dr. J was saying, in the morning, we are our tallest. And that's because all night you have not been on your feet. Your weight is dispersed. And while you're resting, that's when most of our repair happens and regeneration in our cells. And the body is actually rehydrating those discs from the day of, shock absorption. And so when we wake up in the morning, those discs are nice and hydrated and they're at their tallest. But throughout the day, as we are living our life and we're jumping and riding in cars and sitting, those discs and not drinking enough water, maybe our discs literally dehydrate and they get shorter and more compact. So that's why it's so, so important to make sure you're drinking enough water and any other form of hydration that you do, as well as moving your body in certain ways also helps to pump fluid in and out of the discs to keep them hydrated throughout the day.
So when we're talking about hydration, we're talking about like half your body weight in ounces of water, which would be really important for you to think about throughout the day. So if you, for example, weighed 100 pounds, you would want to drink 50 ounces of water. So that might actually look like more than the 8 cups of water that we're typically told about. Also, if you're working out and the weather is getting a little bit nicer these days, if you're sweating more, you'll want to add even more water. Wobble and traction is also what Dr. Megan was talking about in terms of actually specific movements and ranges of motion to help pump fluids into your disc spaces to keep them nice and open. So again, the 3 different planes of motion, when you're on that wobble disc, the side to side, front to back, the rotational stuff, all those are the different planes of motion to keep our joints, again, moving and mobile. I keep moving around because I'm trying to be mobile.
Yeah.
But I also put on there that the wobble and the traction increase disc height in older patients. So my story is, we had this lady that was about, I think in her 70s, she came in, anyways, had started getting adjusted for a couple months, goes back to her yearly physical, and she actually grew half an inch. And it's not because she like physically grew, right? Like as we age, people are like, oh yeah, like my height is shrinking. And it's actually what is shrinking is your disc spaces are becoming more compact, right? So therefore you are losing height. And with her, because she was doing her wobble and her traction, she's getting adjusted, her posture actually started to change and she grew half an inch, which is pretty cool.
That is so cool. That's so amazing. So now the fun part, we are going to get into some practical tools, excuse me, that you can be doing at home to help hydrate those discs, keep your mobility, age gracefully. And if you're a patient in our office, then you are very familiar with the first 2 items on this slide, the wobble and the traction. We've talked about it a few times, going through the 3 planes of motion. And some other ideas that are good are joints, first of all, joints just love circles. Any joint, if you are taking a break from sitting throughout the day, just pick one joint. I'm going to pick one.
Me too.
You can pick one for the next 5 seconds. We're going to move any joint you want.
Like this.
Choose your own adventure for 5 seconds in a circle. So I'm going to pick my shoulders.
Oh, I might actually do my neck.
Okay. So I'm going to move my shoulders back for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Nice.
Yeah. And so that's super easy. Took 5 seconds and my posture actually already feels better. You can do, your wrists if you are typing a lot, your hips if you're sitting a lot. Just get up and move something in a circle, rule of thumb. Those are super easy. If you're wanting a little bit more of a challenge for your mobility and maybe your brain, something else you can do is cross pattern exercises. So these usually bring a limb meeting another limb across your body. And we're actually going to watch a video here in a minute. But the reason this is so important for your balance is that it utilizes both parts of your brain. So it keeps those engaged and it uses your core to make those things happen. And these are so important to keep strong as we age, especially because we're more, prone to falls for different reasons. So if we're used to training balance, maybe we will catch ourselves better, or maybe we won't fall as much in the first place. So super important to incorporate in our, regular routine. And again, we'll go over those in a minute. But most of all, if we can leave you with one important thing, it's don't let movement be a chore. Like,
it's good.
If something's bringing you joy, keep doing that. Get outside. It's about to be so nice here in North Carolina. And just find something that feels like play. And I hear a lot of people enjoying pickleball lately.
Ooh,
that
I
is,
enjoy pickleball.
I have, you've
No,
played
I
it?
want to.
We want to. Maybe find something new. Try something new if you're feeling like your routine is mundane. Just find something that feels like play. Yeah.
What that could look like is even joining like classes at the Robin Hood or YMCA. I actually think downtown and Billy Park, they're doing like yoga out there.
I had a spin class one time, I think.
And a spin class. So there are free things around in town, or you can join a class somewhere. Even doing like aware hot yoga or yoga places. Pilates.
Inner Strength Pilates is one of our favorite places to work out.
Very cool. There's also Top Tier we went to last week as a team to try it out for a new workout. They also have like a cold plunge and a sauna, which can actually be really great for your joints.
So nice after you work out.
Yes. So there's lots of tools in town that you can also utilize. If you have any questions on that, please let us know. We're more than happy to resource you. But those are just some of our favorite ones. And then also for ourselves, like play can look like going for a run or jogging, walking with a friend,
take a dance class.
So there's all sorts of things that you can do. But again, it's like she said, don't make it a chore. It should be fun and enjoyable. And that's how you'll maintain your mobility and your like joint health throughout aging. So the next video that we have for you guys is going to be one of these cross pattern exercises. And this Dr. Megan talks about it in the video. So here you go.
Here we're demonstrating cross patterns, which help with balance, coordination, and core strength. Dr. T is showing level 1. For added balance, Dr. T is demonstrating the same cross pattern exercise of bringing her knee to meet the opposite hand, and she's standing this time. It's a good idea to keep a chair close by or stand next to something, just in case you feel off balance. As another option, Dr. T is demonstrating a crawl, where she, again, is moving opposite knee to opposite hand. For added core strength, she can pick up both knees. Yep. And continue that pattern.
So we have one more
here. We're demonstrating cross patterns, which help with balance, coordination, and core strength. This is bird dog. Dr. T is going to demonstrate starting out lifting one limb at a time. So she's starting with her legs and then one arm at a time. If this is easy for you, you can start adding that cross pattern by lifting one arm and one leg. And she's going to show us how to start small and then work your way up to full range of motion, as that is more challenging.
So those last two exercises were just some good ideas to start adding into your routine. Both of those things, so even the seated or sitting in a chair doing that cross pattern exercise is something that you can do during work, when you're watching TV at night. It's just simple things. Same with the bird dog. It's like commercial break is always my favorite time to try to get things in, even your wobble and traction. But doing that even during something so simple, it doesn't have to take a long period of time. You can even do it for 30 seconds to a minute, and it'd be super good for your coordination, your balance, and again, mobility. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about ways that we can help our body through nutrition. Because again, this is one of the pillars, I would say, in the lifestyle of people that live in those blue zones. And they might follow a certain nutrition. For example, a lot of them follow like a Mediterranean style diet. But if that doesn't work for you, just pick something that does, but something that reduces our processed food and reduces sugar in our bodies.
Yeah, which in turn are going to help reduce inflammation, pain, and help your joints stay healthy. So some of those things we have already talked about: hydration, water. We just got some electrolyte packets here in our office, and you do it.
Oh, okay. So Element, can you guys see that? Hopefully. Element is a electrolyte company. And they actually, electrolytes are sodium, potassium, and magnesium, and we need these in our bodies to help with different processes. Do you want to tell us why electrolytes we should take these?
So sometimes when you feel like you can't drink any more water, you feel like you're on your hydration game and you are still feeling really thirsty, or just not seeing the benefits that you want to. Sometimes it's because the water is actually flushing through our system and not absorbing. So whether that is because of our water quality or literally just drinking too much water, which is not the case in many of our lives, but for some of us, yeah. We need these extra minerals and electrolytes so that the water can be better absorbed and is not just passing through us.
That's awesome. Some other supplements that you can think about adding into your diet would be the fish oil or omega-3s. So these are really good for decreasing inflammation and decreasing pain, but again, helping the suppleness or mobility of our joints. The other thing that I would say is the joint health here at the office. It has hyaluronic acid in it, which is actually really good. Again, something else that's good in it that would be for our disc health and any joint that we have in our body. Collagen, super important. So actually with our aging, as we start to age, our collagen production naturally decreases. So that is something that we actually make in our bodies. It starts to decrease as we age, but collagen is good for hydration. And it's a water structure. It helps hold the water into our joints and so forth. So we would want to start supplementing with collagen, whether it is a powder or bone broth, which you had mentioned in the past, I guess. What's your favorite way to drink bone broth?
I just like it by the cup, but Dr. J was telling me about this whole recipe she loves, and I haven't tried it yet, but you should tell us about that.
Okay, so my favorite way is well, it's not really winter anymore. It's not as cold, but when it's cold outside, I love to heat up my bone broth with a little bit of heavy cream and pepper, and it just makes it so good and so cozy and warm. But that is another way to get in bone broth if you don't just want to drink
it. And some healthy fats.
Healthy fats.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually I will put salt in it. It makes it taste so good.
It's like a cup of soup without putting all that effort in.
So good. And then the last thing also is vitamin C. So getting more vitamin C into your diet, because vitamin C is a building block for that collagen. So you can get this definitely through foods, but also supplementation. Again, foods would be like citrus fruits, but actually bell peppers, strawberries have vitamin C. So if you can get any of those supplements in normally, or not normally, but through our nutrition as opposed to the supplementation form would be great. So eating more whole foods and vegetables is a good way to get in, more fish oil, and the hyaluronic acid is more specific, but collagen, again, through the bone broth as opposed to just taking a powder would be great. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
If you guys have any questions, let us know.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.